Good one. My name is Maria Sonin. I am with a publication called Compliance Week, but I previously was with the Ethics and Compliance Officer Association for about 8 years.
I'm Tim Mazur. I was Maria's boss at the Ethics and Compliance Officer Association for 8 years. I've also been an ethics officer at 2 Fortune 500 companies. And right now I'm the Bill Daniels Distinguished Professor of Business Ethics at the College of Business of the University of Wyoming.
And do you know how to horseback ride yet?
Not on purpose, no.
I think we sat with you yesterday. Yes. One of your students, it's like, we had to ride our horses all the way to the airport.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's unfortunate you couldn't get a buggy, I'm sorry.
So just to briefly, they're going to set the timers they have for 30 minutes. We're going to ask 20 minutes in our role as board of directors. Do you have this executive summary, Stetson? And so it'll give you just a little bit of information about them.
We have copies if we needed to provide them.
Oh, they have it. Good. Thank you very much. You have it. Not that you need it for now, but just to have it. It's
there we go. Got it.
So we're going to do the Q&A in character as board of directors. We're going to give you feedback, as you heard me say, only to help you be effective tomorrow, because you won't have to do everything you're doing today, tomorrow. You just have 10 minutes to do the ethics, so we'll help you with that. You obviously know that any technical, philosophical language or jargon isn't useful because you're business consultants and you wouldn't talk that way to a board of directors, even if you might in a classroom. So we're asking you to be really in that role as consultants. And you're certainly allowed to use notes, but any reading from scripts to tell you will count against the presentation piece of the thing. And every member of the team must have a speaking right. So that's the end of what every team hears at the beginning. And now, let's reset, or if you probably didn't touch yours the way I did, let me reset mine. If you have to reset yours.
I have to reset. So 3? Oh, that's 3 hours. No.
Well, you might be really absorbed in 3 hours, but
we can talk through it.
It would be kind of great to do the 30 minutes. You probably want to explore Cambridge at some point tonight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, me too. Yep.
Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
Yes. Right. So I'm going to push this, and you are too. And we welcome you starting.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Klass. On my left is Leah Hauserman, and on my right, Megan Christopher, and we are Top Hat Consulting. Thank you for inviting us here today and listening as we aim to encourage you to join the Fair Food Program, created by the Coalition of Immokalee Workers. As you already know, Publix is one of the largest grocery store chains in the Southeast, especially in Florida where your company was born. Publix's mission statement is to be the premier quality food retailer in the world. You pride yourselves on having the highest standards of stewardship and on being a neighborhood company by treating your employees well and supporting the communities in which you do business. Throughout history, farm workers have been some of the most underprivileged workers in the U.S. Migrant workers suffer from abuse on the job and low pay, but must remain silent out of fear of losing their jobs. The Coalition of Immokalee Workers aims to help fix this problem and act as a voice for these disadvantaged workers. The CIW is founded by Greg Asbed, a lawyer from Florida, and Lucas Benitez, a migrant worker from Immokalee who has witnessed his fair share of abusive behavior in the fields. The CIW's mission is to improve human rights while still protecting the interests of growers and to advance the ethical supply chain concerns of food retailers. In order to do that, the CIW has implemented the Fair Food Program, in which companies that join pay an extra penny per pound for tomatoes that they purchase, which can help increase these farm workers' incomes by approximately 60%. Suppliers of the program also must uphold certain standards related to working and living conditions, such as providing shade for the workers during the long, hot hours of the day and ensuring that they have adequate housing. The CIW also makes sure that suppliers can't rob workers of their wages by paying them for fewer baskets of tomatoes than they actually picked. The CIW has its own independent auditors to ensure that these standards are being met.
Here, we see some of the companies that are already involved in the Fair Food Program, such as Taco Bell and Chipotle. We also see names of some of Publix's biggest competitors, like Walmart, Whole Foods, and Trader Joe's. As Leah said, the Fair Food Program is a program in which participants pay an extra 1 penny per pound on their tomato purchases. And now, the CIW has focused their efforts on you. However, as a company, you openly reject the CIW's request for you to join, and instead say, just put it in the price. Instead of joining a program in order for workers' wages to increase, you believe the penny should be added to the price regardless. An increase in price you are more than willing to pay. Your point is that you will not be the ones paying these workers directly, since that is the job of their employer, not your company or any other company. And while we respect your logic, we do not believe that this is the best business decision. So Leah, Megan, and I are here today to implore you to have a change of mind and to join the Fair Food Program. Through an examination of the legal, financial, and ethical implications that joining and not joining may have on your company, we hope to convince you that our course of action will be the most beneficial for you. So first, we take a look at the legal aspects, which Megan will discuss.
Thank you, Sarah. As mentioned before, my name is Megan Christopher, and I'm the legal advisor for Top Hat Consulting. Here on the screen, we see a list of laws that apply to farm workers in the United States. And unfortunately, only 3 of them apply to the migrant farm workers working in Immokalee. Before I address the laws that do apply, I want to go over a few laws that don't apply to this disadvantaged workforce. First is the National Labor Relations Act of 1935. This act protects workforces when they want to form a union. That means these migrant workers have no protection in forming their own union, so they have no one to fight for their rights. Next is the Federal Unemployment Tax Act of 1976. This act says if you are terminated for whatever reason, you can collect unemployment payments. That means if these migrant workers are terminated for whatever reason, they have no source of income. So I want to address the 3 laws that do apply to these migrant workers. First is the H-2A Act of 1965. That act is threefold. First, you must have documented authorization to come and work in this country. Second, if you are displaced for employment, you must have housing and transportation provided to you. Third, you must have a 75% written promise for the hours that you are going to work before you arrive to this country. Next is the Migrant and Seasonal Agriculture Workers Protection Act of 1983. This was made to complement the H-2A Act and say, the housing that is provided to migrant workers must meet the code of local government. Lastly is the Forced Labor Laws of 2000. Now we all know slavery was abolished at the end of the Civil War with the 13th Amendment, but unfortunately it's crept its way back into our agricultural industry. So the forced labor laws were established to make sure that no employee was forced against their will to provide a product or a service. There also shall be no physical enslavement or threatening or abuse to the physical and emotional state of an employee. Now, these laws are being broken and violated on a day-to-day basis. So that makes us ask, are these laws enough to protect the well-being of these workers? And I'm here to give you evidence that they are not, starting with enforcement. In the state of Florida, there are 16 inspectors specifically sanctioned by the Department of Labor to oversee the agricultural industry. These inspectors are in charge of doing things like inspecting toxin quality in the air, how managers treat their employees, and how much money they're getting paid per hour. But in the state of Florida, there are 40,000 commercial farms. And that means if every single one of these inspectors was working every single day of the year, it would still take 7 years to inspect every single commercial farm in Florida. That leads us to ask, how can we expect these employers to follow the law when we can't even enforce it properly? Next, these laws are in place to protect the well-being of these workers, yet 3 out of 5 of them are living below the poverty line, and the annual income for a migrant worker is $10,000 annually. Now that annual income is even affected by outliers such as managers and supervisors, so in reality it's lower. Now to put this in perspective, the living wage in Florida is $23,000 a year for one adult, and this annual income is most likely the income for an entire migrant family. Not only are they living vastly below the poverty line, They also work and live in terrible conditions. Farm working is considered the second most dangerous job in the United States and is first in the country for toxin-related injuries and illnesses developed on the job. But only 28% of these illnesses and injuries are compensated for by employers. And the housing issued to them, we can clearly see, do not coincide with the law. They're supposed to coincide with the local codes, but we see these floors are concrete. The walls are made out of plywood, there's no proper insulation. The only furniture they were issued is a metal bed frame and there's wires loose hanging from the wall. This isn't only uncomfortable, this is unsafe. Finally, and debatably the most atrocious law that is being violated is slavery. The CIW has assisted in numerous trials and helped liberate up to 1,200 enslaved workers. To give you a specific case of this atrocity, in 2008, 2 brothers from Immokalee, Florida, were arrested. Their names were Caesar and Giovanni Narbetti. They were sentenced to 12 years of federal prison each for the beating, battery, and physical enslavement of migrant workers. This picture right here is the inside of a U-Haul truck, where up to 50 enslaved workers would be chained to the rafters of that U-Haul truck. And this man are holding the chains that once enslaved him. This is not only a violation of human rights, this is a violation of a law and a practice that we as a country have eradicated 150 years ago. So before I hand it over to Leah to discuss the financial implications, I want to stress to you that these laws are not enough to protect the well-being of the workers, and they are not being enforced properly.
Hi, my name is Leah Hauseran, and I'm your financial advisor. Some of the major issues at the forefront of this debate are related to the financial hardships that these workers face on a daily basis. In 1980, a tomato picker earned 40 cents per 32-pound bucket of tomatoes that they picked. Now, if this wage rate had kept up with inflation, then today it would be $1.15. However, today, in 2016, tomato pickers only earn 50 cents per 32-pound bucket. This means that over the past 36 years, their real wage rates have been cut in half. In addition to decreasing real wages, the Department of Labor and the Department of Agriculture have named farm workers as one of the most disadvantaged working groups in the US. They mentioned these 3 factors in their reasoning as to why farm work is leaving so many tomato pickers so destitute right now. So the question is, why does all of this matter to Publix? Cost-benefit analysis is a typical business approach that is rooted in utilitarianism, and it involves weighing the cost of a decision with the benefits of that decision. Using this analysis, there is significant evidence to suggest that it might save your company money to join the Fair Food Program. To answer why, let me first give you some background information. Florida currently has a population of 20.28 million. Young people up to the age of 25 currently make up the largest fraction of this population than any other age group at 37%. Then comes adults aged 25 to 49 at 32%, then adults aged 49 to 74 at 23%, and then seniors over the age of 75 at 8% of the population. The main assumption that Publix's stance on this issue rests on is that customers won't change their buying habits based on your stance on this one debate. While this may be true for current adult customers, a poll from last year that was published in Forbes revealed that 75% of millennials feel that it is very important that the companies that they buy from give back to society. In addition, a Nielsen survey revealed that 53% of millennials are willing to pay extra for products from socially responsible companies. This is exemplified by how millennials are willing to pay premium for products from companies like Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, which, by the way, are members of the Fair Food Program. The social impact of companies is becoming increasingly more important to young people, and they will either stop shopping at Publix or will never develop the habit of buying from Publix in the first place if they don't see your company making the socially responsible choice. That same article from Forbes also revealed that millennials are very brand loyal. In fact, 60% of them are almost always loyal to the brands that they currently purchase. This statistic proves that now is a crucial time for Publix. Do you want them developing loyalties to Walmart, Whole Foods, or Trader Joe's? It is imperative that Publix develop a relationship with these young people, because if you don't, it could be a major threat to Publix's future sales. Now, if you're still not convinced that the interests of young people should be a major concern to Publix, consider the series of events that led up to Taco Bell joining the program in 2005. College students from Miami to Los Angeles organized the Boot the Bell campaign in 2001 and held over 400 protests over a period of 4 years. Eventually, Taco Bell couldn't let this go on any longer, and it became the first corporation to join the Fair Food Program. The driving force behind these protests was the Student Farm Worker Alliance, in which students from hundreds of universities band together to support the CIW and its mission. If students persistently protested Taco Bell for 4 years, why won't they do the same for Publix? Students from all over the country, from at least 8 universities, have already been protesting in marches and outside of Publix stores. Taco Bell had to join the program because its restaurants had already been dropped from 22 high school and college campuses, including the University of Chicago, UCLA, Notre Dame, Cal State, and the University of Texas at Austin. Not only has Publix recently begun to set up locations on college campuses, also remember that young people will be an increasing fraction of your clientele over the next few decades. Publix cannot afford to lose out on potentially millions of dollars of future sales revenue because young people boycott and refuse to shop at your grocery stores. Now, joining the program is actually relatively inexpensive. Publix reported on its net income statement from 2014 a net earnings of $1.74 billion. The CIW reported that over the years, each corporate partner pays about $271,000 to the Fair Food Program annually. Not only is this a very small portion out of your net income, but Publix runs a great risk of losing more than $271,000 annually if young people refuse to shop at your stores because of your stance on this issue. In addition, undertaking corporate social responsibility measures can financially benefit your company because it can add to your competitive advantage. This could be a way for Publix to distinguish itself in a way that is unique and difficult for your competitors that have not joined the program to imitate. In short, it is likely that it would cost Publix more to not join the Fair Food Program. Lastly, we understand that Publix's main defense for its position is that the extra penny per pound should just be put in the price that Publix pays for the tomatoes, and that you shouldn't have to join a program in order to make that happen. This logic makes sense, but there are 2 main factors that prove the Fair Food Program to be necessary. First, suppliers routinely rob workers of their wages, either by paying them less than 50 cents per bucket or by paying them for fewer buckets of tomatoes than they actually picked. The CIW makes sure that your money is going to the people who are supposed to receive it. Secondly, the CIW enforces rules related to working and living conditions in addition to wages, so you would be helping these farm workers in more than just a monetary sense. Before I hand it off to Sarah to discuss the ethical implications, I just want to stress that your extra penny per pound will do more good when paid to the Fair Food Program than it would if it were paid to the suppliers, because you will be helping the farm workers in more than one aspect of their lives, and because you can better promote yourself as a socially responsible company to millennials. Now I just want to change gears and hand it off to Sarah to discuss the ethics.
Thank you. Publix is one of the most popular supermarkets throughout the Southeast, with 1,111 stores, 764 being in Florida. Publix has received numerous awards for being such an outstanding company, such as one of America's best supermarkets by dailymeal.com, God bless you, and one of Fortune's most admired companies from 1994 until present day. Your mission at Publix is to be the premier quality food retailer in the world, and for years you've been able to achieve this goal. However, not joining the Fair Food Program has begun to cause a rift between you and your customers, a rift that can only grow deeper. As Leah said, the upcoming generation is faced with the choice as to where to shop. Walmart, Winn-Dixie, Publix. With increasing publicity the CIW and their cause is getting, Publix might not be the answer for many of these potential customers. You are a company benefited by your exemplary brand image and the importance you place on being an ethical and sound organization. And yet, if there are some atrocities going on, it is not our business, said a Publix spokesperson in 2010. And still today, these views have not changed. While we understand the message that Dwayne Stevens was trying to relay, we disagree. In this day and age, the atrocities going on are your business. Straight from your website is the quote, "We will never knowingly disappoint you." A message aimed at your customers and your stakeholders. Therefore, a message aimed at each of us here today. But many people are disappointed with your decision to evade the Fair Food Program and your resistance to integrate corporate social responsibility into this decision. Corporate social responsibility becomes more prominent in business every year. It is a business practice that involves participating in initiatives that benefit society. And as consumers' awareness about social issues continues to grow, so does the importance they place on corporate social responsibility when choosing where to shop. CSR takes into account all the stakeholders of a company, including customers, employees, communities, supply chain members, and even the media. By not expanding on your previously set CSR initiatives, you are subject to significant backlash from these stakeholders. Here, we see some of the aspects of a typical foods supply chain. And while not all apply to Publix, who is at the height of a very large supply chain themselves, the farm workers in Immokalee, who work all day to supply Publix supermarkets, are part of Publix's supply chain. And therefore, it is your responsibility to care about the atrocities that are going on in Immokalee. Publix is commended for how well they take care of their stakeholders, yet these particular stakeholders seem to be forgotten. While communities are often left out when examining stakeholders of a company, they are still very prominent. Once again, we see quotes from your website about the importance you place on communities and how much you care about the ones that surround you. Yet 10 minutes away from one Publix supermarket is the Immokalee community itself. The CIW is quite literally in Publix's backyard, proving to be a very significant stakeholder to the company. By resisting the CIW's request for you to join the Fair Food Program, you are ignoring the growing significance of corporate social responsibility, which is not only synonymous with business ethics, but also incorporates dimensions such as safety and human rights. The heart of this issue is that a hard-working group of men and women are being denied basic human rights. While there is more interest in food these days than ever, there seems to be little interest in the hands that pick it. Farm workers are often abused and robbed of wages. In extreme cases, they can be beaten, sexually harassed, and even enslaved, as Megan explained earlier. All these within the borders of the United States. In fact, all in the state of Florida. The human cost in our food supply is far too expensive, and the Fair Food Program works to ensure a dignified life for these farm workers. Farm labor is one of the most disadvantaged, underpaid, and dangerous jobs in America. These men and women work at a brutal pace just to earn a minimum wage and live well below the poverty line. They live in homes not fit for living, homes over capacity and not safe for any adult, let alone children, since many of these men and women have families with them. But when somebody is living in poverty, the loss of a job can have horrible effects, which causes these men and women to stay in these jobs even though they are being treated unfairly. And the Fair Food Program was called one of the great success stories of our day in a Washington Post article for its constant efforts to end the human rights violations that occur each and every day to these workers. The United Nations declares recognition of the inherent dignity and equal rights of all members of the human family. Now, deontology is a duty-based ethical theory that calls for each person to treat others equally, with autonomy, and with respect. On this ethical theory, put self-interest aside and act on behalf of everybody and look at the bigger picture. Don't treat people as a means to an end. Don't act for the greatest good for the greatest amount of people if there's even a small portion of people being hurt in the process. Act on behalf of everybody and each person's basic human rights. At the height of a supply chain, It is your duty to ensure the treatment and quality of those below you are up to your standards. Deontology states that businesses should do no harm. And indirectly, by not joining the Fair Food Program, you are doing harm. You are not protecting the rights of these underprivileged workers who work all day to supply your stores. You are not incorporating this ethical theory into your business that could so greatly help you and benefit you. So Publix, remember what makes you different. You are a company that cares about your stakeholders, and it's time for you to prove that. Uphold the standards that bring customers into your stores every day. We understand that there's no perfect solution to the problem at hand. One company cannot end poverty, but one company, your company, can make a difference. If your efforts can positively impact the lives of one family, even one man or one woman, isn't that worth it?
Thank you. So that's why we're here, to recommend Publix to help end the poverty and injustice happening in the fields of Immokalee, Florida. To give you a brief summary of our decision criteria today, I want to address each section, starting with the legal section. We wanted to make sure Publix had no lawful obligation to join this program, but we also looked at the laws that apply to the migrant workers and how they're being broken every day, and how that applies to the suppliers and you as the buyers. Next, we took a utilitarian approach to the financial section by providing you with a brief cost-benefit analysis, by giving you the monetary cost of joining this program and the opportunity cost of not joining this program, which includes loss of profits and loss of customers. Finally, we gave you a deontological approach to the ethical section. We provided and showed you how your brand image is going to be affected by not joining this program. We showed you how the Fair Food Program already aligns with your mission statement and vision, how aspects of CSR already align with your pre-existing business model. Finally, we looked at the human right violations in Immokalee, Florida, and how your position in your supply chain can help the human rights movement in Immokalee, Florida. Now, while we understand we took a different approach for every single section today, we did that purposely so you can see that regardless of what approach you take, it all points to the same solution, and that is joining with the Fair Food Program. Finally, we want to give you a tentative action plan of how to implement the recommendation we gave to you today. Starting with scheduling a meeting with the CIW, and we recommend that you do that within 1 to 3 months. And at that meeting, you lay the groundwork of a prosperous business relationship and have a contractual agreement that meet the terms of both you, the Board of Directors of Publix, and the CIW. Next, we understand, and one of the biggest things that you stressed to us before we came here today is that you didn't want to seem like you were bending to the will of the protesters, that you wanted to seem strong as a company in your values and morals, and we totally respect that. That's why in this press release, we recommend that you post it on your website and say how much consideration went into this decision, because there was. And finally, that you will campaign and let the world know that Publix isn't only a company advocating for the rights and benefits of an employee, since you're an employee-owned company, but also you're advocating for the benefits and the rights of the people who work to put food in your stores. On behalf of Top Hat Consulting, we greatly appreciate you for having us here today. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, we will set the timer again for 10 minutes.
The battery might be done. Just kidding, I got it.
Well, mine's working.
So is my phone.
I'll take the first question, and then we're going to do
So we have 20 minutes there, right?
You're right, you do. Thank you, Tim.
She said it for 20.
Yeah, I have.
Well, I'm glad you did. Because I didn't. I didn't go to college, and I don't care about classroom things like utilitarianism and Dion, whatever it was. So without using those labels, give me the bottom line of what you're really saying is important for us to do in terms of the ethical obligations you feel we have.
That's a great question. So when it comes to the bottom line, without using all the fancy schmancy other classroom words, the bottom line is that you are at the height of a supply chain, and you have effect over everybody below you. And you constantly advocate for the communities that you surround yourself with. It's on your website. So we're here to say that because you're an advocate of benefiting communities, the best place for you to do this is joining the Fair Food Program, because that's allowing people at the top of the supply chains to pay extra to affect the people at the bottom of the supply chains. Does that encapsulate it for you?
Does that encapsulate what you were saying when you used those two terms?
Yes, we use them to give different approaches. So the utilitarian approach is more appropriate for the financial section because we wanted to show you that there's more benefits than cost, both monetary and opportunity costs. And then for deontology, for the ethical, we wanted to stress that you advocate for being a community company, and that comes with respecting the people inside of your communities.
Okay, thanks.
So this is all great, thank you very much. My question is this, like, do you guys even know what percentage tomatoes actually are of our gross sales? I don't see that just focusing on this is gonna truly make a huge difference. I mean, shouldn't we actually be partnering with somebody who's working with all different farmers and produce and supply chain?
That's a good question. The CIW has been expanding which farms it works with, and so it actually works with a lot of farms, especially in Florida, but it's now grown to other sections of produce and in other states. Publix is the biggest tomato purchaser in Florida, and so tomatoes are a very large portion of your sales. But what we also want to stress is that it's not only about your tomato sales, it's that if people stop shopping at Publix because of your stance on this issue, then you won't only lose out on the sales of those, you're going to lose out on the sales of all of the other 40,000 products in your stores. And so there's a greater opportunity cost of not joining than the cost of joining will be.
Yeah, Publix has moved into states such as North Carolina, even New Jersey. They've moved into the East Coast, and they've moved onto peppers and strawberries as well. So they're expanding where they are and what they're trying to get with the workers, and for what produce that they're trying to get human rights benefits for.
So, like Maria said, very, very thoughtful. I must say one of the first things that pops into my mind is the phrase, don't give in to the terrorists. And I wonder, have you thought about the implications that if we say yes, as you have suggested we do, are there 74 other versions of the CIW that are saying, oh, they folded, and now the door's open, and we're all going to go after them for a penny here and 5 cents there. And so, go ahead.
We definitely have thought of that, and really our course of action for that is to approach those dilemmas as they occur. And we are more than happy to come back, and if they start moving into like a milk industry, then we will come back and we will give you a presentation and try to persuade you as to what we believe will be the best decision for that. But there's no way to foresee what industries will start doing that and what their terms will be in order for you to join a program. But we have definitely considered that joining one program will open the doors for other programs to most likely start. We just advise taking those as they come.
So when you put up the logos of our competitors, so are you saying that Whole Foods subscribes to this program?
Mm-hmm.
And so along the line of my question, are we able to see how many programs Whole Foods participates in? And is there data out there that tells you after they gave into the CIW, this many other, they said yes to this many other groups, presumably because those groups approached them?
I mean, that would be something more from the Whole Foods that you'd have to approach them and ask for their transparency. From our research and looking at the programs, the CIW is almost a first of its kind, so who's to say if anybody else is going to come up. But as we said, we advise you to take them one step at a time, and if we feel like you're being overwhelmed by these sort of programs, we can always reach out to Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Walmart, to see how we can almost stop the abusing of the top of the supply chain or something like that. But we recommend for this specific instance that you continue with the course of action that we recommended, because who's to tell what the foreseeable future is going to hold. So.
Problem I have is that we're mighty proud of our CSR track record. We have done an awful lot, and I'm listening to you, and you're telling us there are additional needs out there. Tim's point and additional concerns are that there's no end. We didn't get into business to save the world. So the challenge I have is when we have a mighty fine track record, you're asking us to do more and bear responsibility that really feels that it isn't in our business's best interest. We're willing, as we said, to pay the dollar, to pay the extra penny. We don't believe in big government. So I'm having trouble here.
So Publix has an exemplary brand image. People love Publix, especially in Florida, where there are so many locations. The first thing that you say when you need to find a grocery store, people always say to go to Publix. People love Publix, and this is sort of, you can think of it kind of as an insurance policy. What we don't want is for Publix's brand image to be tarnished because of this. You spent years building it up and making sure that it's perfect, and it is great as of right now. However, it's really started to falter as of late, and we want to make sure that people don't begin viewing Publix as not a socially responsible company. In addition, if you want to think about how much you spend on brand insurance, this is very inexpensive relative to that, just to make sure that your brand image doesn't get hurt because of this.
If I may, I'm sorry, add to that question. I understand that you guys have worked so hard to build the image that you uphold. And I think a lot of the protesters and the people that have problem with this program and the fact that you are not joining is because there's quotes in the presentation that we use straight from your website that apply to this situation, that apply to you protecting your communities, advocating for your communities. But a lot of your consumers feel like you're not, because you're ignoring this growing program that is fighting for the rights of the people who supply for your stores. So if you don't believe, we understand you don't believe in big government and all those sorts of things, but if you are advocating and putting quotes out there, we recommend you to stick by them, because a lot of people think you're not. So you, like Leah said, your brand image, your mission and vision are being tarnished, and people they're not trusting you as much with what you say, because they feel like you're not upholding the standards you've already set for yourself. And now, as you may not see it as that, but you're consumers, and that should be a growing concern to you. We believe that should be a growing concern to you.
So here's my issue. You listed all those companies up there that have already joined this thing, right? And that's great, right? But if we come on board now, we're just another one following the pack. What if we found something different, right? Like, what if we use that money to change the laws? What if we use that money to buy our own farms and make sure they're ethical and all that wonderful stuff they've been talking about? Hey, then we really have a competitive advantage.
I like it.
You like it?
I like it.
I love it, but there is one thing to consider, and that is the financial implications, the amount of time and money that you're going to have to invest in that program, when you can pay a penny per pound in a program that's already doing that, advocating for the laws, advocating for the human rights. So, I mean, if you wish to do that, by all means, but we think for the sake of your time and your money as a company, invest in a program that's already doing what you want.
Yeah, we could call them our benefits of the common. Anyway, what say you, Tim?
So for all the right reasons, you talk about our customers and what our customers care about, and you acknowledge the reality of the 0 to 24, which I have every reason to believe the three of you fall into. We're in Florida. We like Florida. Florida is all about Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, not Bernie Sanders. So you seemed to ignore the thought that Florida, which we proudly consider to be the senior citizen capital of the United States, at least during the summer, or winter, excuse me, you seem to ignore that we might get some of our best customers to boycott us if we come to be known as the organization that is giving money to illegal immigrants. I get the fact it brings me no joy to see those horrid things that you showed on the screen, and so they're not any less human than American citizens or whatever. I'm just telling you that it's an interesting concept that you automatically assume that the young people who boycott us are going to be more painful financially than the older senior citizen Trump supporters who are going to boycott us because we're taking their money and giving it to illegal aliens.
That's a very good question. First thing I want to say is that 35% of the workers in Immokalee are not U.S. citizens. So 65% of them are U.S. citizens. 35% of them are not. But that doesn't mean that all 35% of those people are illegal. So then there's only a fraction of those 35% who are illegal. And that's not to discount the fact that there are illegal immigrants. For the first thing, the CIW helps those illegal immigrants obtain documentation and become legal tax-paying citizens. So that might actually help to alleviate part of the problem. And secondly, Florida is commonly seen as the senior citizen capital of the world, of the United States. However, I was actually surprised to learn that only 8% of Florida's population is over 75. When you get into it, really the vast majority of them is under the age of 50. And so as you think about how over the next few decades that population is going to grow older, those are going to be your main focus and your main clientele as those young people become adults. And if those young people become adults and have never begun shopping at Publix in the first place because when they were young, they had decided they didn't like Publix because, of this issue, that could be a major threat to Publix's sales in the future.
And if I may add, back to the political affiliation, you're worried. We understand there is a great, ad of those snowbirds in the wintertime, but I think arguably, regardless of Democrat or Republican, this is a human rights, as Sarah mentioned, a human race issue. And Leah mentioned, most of the time these are legal United States citizens, and regardless of political affiliation, of income levels, this is a human race, human rights issue, and we should not approach it with a political affiliation background. I think Democrats and Republicans alike would be equally as concerned about this issue. About people, United States citizens being, violated and taken advantage of. I don't think political affiliation is something that should be really that seriously taken into consideration.
And I think one of the greatest things that the CIW does, like Leah mentioned, not just the Fair Food Program, but they also help illegal immigrants gain documentation. And I really do think that that is a good answer to your question because they are helping these men and women who otherwise are known as undocumented gain that documentation, so they will no longer be illegal.
I've been sitting here and I've really decided that I'm really stewing over something you said. I pride ourselves as a company on our reputation. And I'd like proof of the fact that it's evidence that it's falling off, that public goodwill, that's like a scare tactic. And I'm not persuaded by something like that. So what do you have that lets me know that you've got something beyond that?
Well, just to first answer your question, I'm sure Leah will have something to add, but I originally came to Florida from Connecticut. And in Connecticut, we have Stop and Shop, and we have Big Y, and we don't have Publix. And so when I moved to Florida and joined this consulting group and met them, Meg, who spends a lot of time in Florida, I asked her where I should shop. Should I go to Walmart? Should I go to Winn-Dixie? Where should I go? And she recommended Publix. And I went to Publix, it was great. But if I was in the exact same situation and I went to a Publix and all I see outside the stores are people saying don't shop here, and there are picketers and there are people who are protesting me not to shop there, That's going to sway me back. I'm not going to Publix, I'm going down the street to Walmart. So it's just going to sway people who might not have the habit yet of shopping there. It's going to make them not want to go there. It's going to make me think, if there are people outside their stores that are protesting, they obviously can't be as great as you're trying to tell me they are.
So just to ask some clarification, there's no evidence then thus far of our public goodwill, our reputation actually faltering? You're talking about the expectation that it could falter.
Well, there have already been several protests. In fact, when Publix decided to expand its market, as you know, on the first college campus in the University of South Florida, there were numerous protests held by the Student Farm Worker Alliance, and hundreds of students joined in on this protest. In addition, though, it's not only students. There have been several instances over the past year that there have been protesters outside of Publix stores, and in order to get into the Publix store, you have to walk past the protesters, which could really deter some people from entering the store in the first place, but also just the fact that there have been so many protests, there have been thousands of people protesting, that shows that at least in those people's eyes, the brand name of Publix is faltering. But you can help save that now.
So you mentioned in your presentation that people, especially these young people, not old folks, really favor CSR, and they say they'll pay premiums. But studies show that people actually don't want to pay more money. So what I'm not quite sure about here is, are you saying that we should absorb this $271,000 average dollar loss? Are we passing this on to the customer? Do we know that we're actually going to keep our tomato sales up if we have to increase the cost?
We don't know that as a fact necessarily. We do know, though, from examples from other stores, as in Taco Bell, etc. Publix runs a great risk of losing that, and so you have two options. You can either see how it goes and run the risk of potentially losing a lot of money, or you could pay the $271,000 annually. Since people, 53% of adults, did survey that they are willing to pay premium, and that's exemplified by more than just grocery. Toms are pretty expensive shoes, but they know that another pair of shoes goes to a child in need. A lot of that kind of business model has really rocketed over the past couple of years, and people are willing to pay a premium for products from those types of companies. And so whether you decide,
Those are premium products though. That's shoes, that's, wool, sugar coats. That's not a tomato.
well, even Chipotle, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, all of those are food companies. And if you think about Chipotle, for example, that has a business image almost completely around CSR. All of their stuff is fair trade, fair food, non-GMO, all that kind of stuff. And Chipotle has become increasingly popular over the past couple of years. Almost everyone now knows Chipotle.
On top of that, you say that you want to be the premium grocery store, and so this penny, that extra premium, I think it already aligns with the mission that you set yourself as a company.
Are we out of time?
No, they started.
Okay, just a quick statement. You said caring about your stakeholders is important. One of our stakeholders are the people we're paying right now. And you're announcing that we're not supposed to give them the penny more, it's supposed to go straight to the CIW. I suspect that's going to upset the people who are our very important suppliers. And lastly, that they are going to say, if you found enough money, to pay more than we've been asking in the past, then we're going to raise our prices. But anyway.
I think it's great. Answer that, would you?
Yes, we'd love to. Okay, I'll answer this question. So previously, because prices have been so competitive over the years, like companies like Walmart have prided themselves on having extremely low prices, the suppliers have had to cut their prices to be competitive in the market. And so you're paying an extra penny per pound to go to specifically these pickers and their employers. I don't think that they would have any specific problem against that. Because this is a program not only advocating for the rights of the workers, we previously mentioned in our presentation, it's also protecting the interests of the growers. We understand the growers are having just as much as a tough time trying to keep up with competitive prices that Walmart and other companies want to set. It's in CIW's mission that they want to protect the interests of growers as well.
I have one thing to add. Your employees at Publix are being paid a living wage. They are not, by working at Publix, they're not going to be falling under the poverty line, whereas these workers who are so disadvantaged aren't getting the same treatment and the same quality treatment that Publix employees are. So they're falling well below the poverty line and making around $10,000, which much less than that, since there are people such as supervisors and managers that fall into that. So they're making much less than a Publix employee would be making.
Okay?
Okay, now we're leaving our role.
Okay.
That was fun though.
It was.
Okay.
You did a great job.
Yeah. Very exciting.
Yeah, perfect for that. Okay.
On my cigar.
I really commend the presence, poise, and capacity to deliver with passion and persuasive and authentic commitment. What you did. It was, I think, very compelling, and it was a great job. But you absolutely can't tomorrow use deontology, utilitarianism. If you read the instructions, it says we're supposed to mark you off for using that. So if you indeed use it tomorrow, you harm yourself. You had a compelling, fabulously compelling information without going anywhere near there. And there are going to be, and not that you're going to be spending your life as consultants defending ethical issues, but those terms mean nothing to people outside the classroom. And you don't want to make yourself suddenly somebody who is talking down to someone. They're gonna, if they own the company, not likely to be as supportive of your message. So I thought that was a real concern. I really think you did a great job, and I think the degree of our questions trying to get at you is testimony to that. And I would hope that you would think about some of the questions and think about whether or not the answers to those questions need to have some kind of relationship in how you spend the 10 minutes tomorrow only on ethics.
Yeah, I guess I would absolutely second everything Gail said. I think that definitely the passion that you brought to it was great. And you're obviously very comfortable in front of the audience and the judges. So that's fabulous, fabulous. For me, I think that you need to, they're only focusing on ethics during the 10 minutes?
That's it.
Okay, so for me, the problem was a lot of the business issues that we were trying to kind of bring up. I thought from the ethics point of view, again, like Gail said, don't use those fancy terms, but from the ethics point of view, one of the things I thought was really great, and that might actually convince a board, is when you linked the ethical issue that you have with our stated values. So by saying, on your website, you say that you care about everyone, yeah, that's, I think, actually could be effective in a real boardroom, because in a real boardroom, they're gonna say, oh, did we really put that on the website? Yeah, fire whoever wrote that on the website. But, you know, that's, I think, was really good. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's really my only feedback there. What do you think, Tim?
Well, as you know me, I've got 76 things to say.
Excellent. You can just take the rest of the time.
Let's do it.
Yeah, you were very, very good. I couldn't agree with Maria more about bringing in the website. That was brilliant. It's, Gail is absolutely right about the word deontology, but the fact of the matter is the team I just judged before this did the same thing.
They're
So-
gonna, presumably they're gonna get knocked out.
Yeah, so it's just, I guess we gotta keep on figuring out how to get the message across about that. What you did is flawless. It's just that actual word. So I wrote down that when you talk about, you saying autonomy is awesome, respect is awesome, basic human rights is awesome, do no harm, perfect. You just
The
can't
whole
talk
thing,
about
just don't say
dead,
autonomy.
yeah, stay away from dead Greek guys. You can't do that. The three of you, your passion and your voice and your eye contact is 100 out of 100. So it really touches a listener when you appear that passionate. So if you're faking it, you're good at faking it. Great focus on business decision. I thought your slides were very well done. They were complementary to your words, and they transferred them nicely. Great point about too few inspectors, and so the careful decisions you made for the first woman is Megan.
Yes,
About how to, with the dollars below the poverty line, the 72% of injuries, that it really affected me, and obviously the focus on slavery, fabulous. Leah. The drop in real wage rates, so compelling. So here's my question. Will our vendors punish us for giving to this campaign? That is such a serious question. In a perfect world, it would have been part of the 25 minutes. Because your answer to it was thoughtful, but it didn't satisfy me. I'd be interested to know, more about CIW. How do I know for a fact that when we give them $271,000 that the guy who takes the money and isn't going to use it to buy heroin the next day? So is it a 501c3 and does it have its books audited? And I'd like to see.
They said auditors. They said that they have their own auditors.
Independent auditors.
Independent auditors.
Good.
But I put a star by that too, and I would have wanted to more.
Put it up on the
process.
screen and show their
Yeah.
2014 990, which is public information. Love that you brought up the Student Farm Workers Alliance, because I just think it's, in this day and age, connecting to NGOs is so good, even when you're talking about us giving money to an NGO. And it really touched me because in the spirit of what Maria said about the website and things like that, Gail's right. It's so much about this decision. How much is the money? It's $271,000. How much do we spend on tomatoes? The finances are very important, but the thing that really makes it that I can't sleep well at night is these frickin' protesters who I can't control. I can control the money. I can't control students spending 4 years until we give in to them. So Sarah, great passion, big stars on the website that Maria mentioned. The 10 minutes away thing in the backyard, awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna make it.
Great that you brought in the Washington Post, these kind of outside research that takes your frickin' liberal approach to all of this and actually gives it some substantiation from resources that we respect is a great way to complement your point of view. The best part was the way you chose to title that slide Decision Criteria, because I wanted to rip you to shreds on this fear that there's going to be 75 other NGOs that are coming after us, and your answer was awesome. And your awesome answer was complemented by the way that you said decision criteria. And when you just said, take these one at a time. This is life. I'm sorry that I can't wave a magic wand and make none of these other NGOs come and talk to you. So if you just demonstrate why you said that yes to this one and why you might say no to the future ones. Great answer. Great answer. Almost done. Love that we laid out a specific path forward. I want to go back to the people I judged at 1 o'clock and give them a lower score, because that was really a nice thing where you just make it easy for us to decide what happens tomorrow if, God forbid, we agree with you. So great about, I wrote down about not giving in. The counter arguments. It's so good that you talk about why we might think that we shouldn't do this and why those reasons aren't as good as your reasons. So bringing up the counter arguments is fantastic. I'm almost done. To be honest with you, I really like that two of you were seated while the other one is speaking, and then you all came there for the Q&A. That's really neat. It just makes it easy for me to focus on the speaker and the reality that the other people are fidgeting or moving around or something, because you can't control it when you're standing. And so that really helped my concentration. It was great that you had the statistic about the fact that 65% of the CIW are American citizens. It's incredible when you have such a valuable number like that and you chose not to use it in the 25 minutes but can use it in the Q&A. So that makes me think, they know their stuff. And going out of your way when you complimented her answer to bring up the ethics part of her answer, she gave the right answer to my question, but you found a way to integrate ethics back into it, is awesome in the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish here. So thank you.
Can I make one more comment, because you got tons of time?
Sure. Okay. So one thing that I was thinking, and it's probably too late to bring this in now, but you didn't talk about the positive or negative effect on our own organizational culture. So how Publix employees feel or do not feel. And I think nowadays more and more boards are aware of that. So just a little comment that maybe brought that in.
I have two quick things I need to report. The first is, I love the millennial stuff. That was great. And it's part of the forward-thinking future of how they advance their business. I didn't like the few times that you made sweeping statements. Everything you say needs to be as well backed up by the research that you have. Not because anyone's going to ask you questions tomorrow, because they're not. They don't have that prerogative. But just because it empowers you. Anytime we talk about things in more general terms, it isn't as powerful. And you do have specifics, and the whole point of this is persuasion. And I just want to quickly read you what's happening tomorrow to remind you again. You have been called back by the company that you gave your full presentation to yesterday for a second visit. They've asked you to speak only about the ethical aspects of the problem and to explain why your solution successfully handles any ethical issues. You'll have 10 minutes, there'll be no Q&A, and you may not use slides or video. One of the challenges you might have, having done such a really good job of integrating ethics into everything, don't waste time tomorrow on anything that isn't ethics. So think about the best that you've got and be as compelling and persuasive as you can. You did, I think, and we think we all have said this, a wonderful job. So congratulations.
Thank you.
One quick thing, when she brought up that